You may not believe that desperation can push a mother to sign away her own body just to keep her child alive. You may not believe that salvation sometimes wears the face of a devil in a tailored suit. But it's the truth. And this is the story of Lila Moreno. Lila was a 29-year-old single mother working as a live-in maid in the mansion of Atlas Kane, one of the wealthiest men on the West Coast. A woman whom life had cornered into a cage made of marble floors and silence. Every night, Lila scrubbed hallways she wasn't allowed to walk through unless summoned. Every night she checked her phone, praying the hospital wouldn't call with news that would destroy her. Her daughter Mia, just 7 years old, carried a dying heart inside her fragile chest. And Lila, she carried nothing but fear, exhaustion, and a mother's love sharp enough to make her do the unthinkable. Welcome to Life in Stories, where every tale reveals hidden truths about people, choices, and fate. If you love emotional, unpredictable stories, make sure you subscribe right now. And before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from today? Your comments help guide future stories. Lila Moreno woke at 4:47 a.m., 13 minutes before her alarm. Her body had learned to anticipate exhaustion like an old friend arriving early. The tiny room beside the laundry chute smelled of detergent and forgotten dreams. She stared at the water-stained ceiling, counting the cracks she had memorized during sleepless nights. Once, she had dreamed of owning a small bakery. She imagined warm cinnamon rolls cooling on wire racks, customers smiling as bells chimed above the door, Mia sitting on a stool covered in flour and laughter. That dream felt like another woman's life now. Someone who hadn't watched her husband pack his bags while their daughter lay connected to hospital machines. "I can't survive this stress," Marco had said 3 years ago. He couldn't survive it. So he left. Lila stayed. She worked 3 jobs for 6 brutal years. Waitressing breakfast shifts. Cleaning corporate offices until midnight. Sewing clothes by lamplight until her fingers bled through the fabric. Her body began breaking down piece by piece. Migraines that blinded her, back spasms that dropped her to her knees, exhaustion so deep she forgot her own reflection. When Mia's heart condition worsened last spring, Lila accepted the job she had sworn she would never take. Live-in maid for the Kane estate. Not a corporate position with benefits and predictable hours. A house servant. Always on call. Cleaning hallways she wasn't permitted to walk through unless summoned. But pride didn't pay hospital bills. Lila dressed silently in her gray uniform, pinned her hair back, and began her 18-hour routine. Polish the marble entryway. Dust the chandeliers. Scrub bathrooms larger than her childhood home. Iron shirts that cost more than her monthly salary. Prepare guest rooms for visitors who never arrived. The Kane mansion sprawled across 12 acres of manicured silence. 47 rooms. 3 pools. A private helipad. And emptiness so thick Lila could taste it on her tongue. The house felt less like a home and more like a museum where emotions were prohibited. At its center lived Atlas Kane. 39 years old. Widower. Founder of Kane Technologies. Net worth exceeding $11 billion. His name alone could crash stock markets or resurrect dying companies. Magazines called him the Ice Emperor of Silicon Valley. Former employees described him as surgically efficient and terrifyingly perceptive. Lila had worked in his home for 8 months. He had never once looked directly at her face. When she carried fresh towels past his study, he continued reading documents without acknowledgement. When she polished floors outside his bedroom, she learned to disappear before his door opened. To Atlas Kane, she existed the way light fixtures existed. Functional, necessary, invisible. She preferred it that way. That Tuesday evening, Lila finished her duties at 11:23 p.m. She retreated to her small room, checking her phone for the hospital's nightly update on Mia. The screen showed 1 missed call. Then another. Then a voicemail notification that made her stomach collapse. She pressed play with trembling fingers. "Mrs. Moreno, this is Dr. Patel. Mia's condition has deteriorated significantly. We need to perform surgery within 10 days, or I'm afraid she won't survive. The procedure costs approximately $180,000. Please contact us immediately to discuss options." Lila couldn't breathe. $180,000. She had $43 in her account. 10 days to save her daughter's life with money she could never earn, borrow, or steal. Her legs gave out in the servants' hallway. She crumpled against the wall, pressing her apron against her mouth to muffle the sobs that tore through her chest. Every fear she had buried for 3 years erupted simultaneously. She was going to lose Mia. Her beautiful, brave, innocent little girl was going to die because her mother couldn't afford to save her. Footsteps approached. Lila scrambled to stand, wiping her face frantically. Atlas Kane stood 6 feet away, his gray eyes studying her with clinical detachment. He wore a black sweater and tailored pants. No emotion crossed his angular features. "What's wrong with you?" His voice held no cruelty, just unfamiliarity with human weakness. "Nothing, sir." "I apologize, sir." He didn't move. Those cold eyes examined her tear-streaked face like she was a malfunctioning piece of equipment requiring assessment. "Be in my study at 7 tomorrow morning." Then he walked away, footsteps echoing down the marble corridor. Lila didn't sleep. Billionaires didn't summon maids for pleasant conversations. She would be fired. She would lose her room, her income, her last desperate chance to save Mia. By morning, she had rehearsed 17 different apologies. At 7 sharp, she entered his study. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens she had never been permitted to enjoy. Atlas sat behind a mahogany desk, tablet in hand, dark circles shadowing his eyes. "I accessed your daughter's medical file." Lila's blood turned to ice. "I can pay for her surgery," he continued, finally meeting her gaze. "All of it. I can transfer her to my private medical facility. Hire the country's best specialists. Ensure she receives treatment that money cannot typically purchase." Lila's knees buckled. This couldn't be real. "But I need something in return." Her heart stopped. "I want a biological heir. Not a relationship. Not marriage. Just a child to continue my lineage." He stood, walking toward the windows. "I need someone trustworthy. Someone without agenda. Someone with nothing to gain except what I willingly provide." Lila couldn't form words. "Think for 24 hours. This offer does not repeat." That night, Lila sat beside Mia's hospital bed, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall with labored effort. "Mommy," Mia whispered. "Don't cry. I'll get better." Lila's heart shattered into fragments. At 6:58 the next morning, she stood outside Atlas Kane's study, hand raised to knock, her entire future balanced on a single impossible choice. Lila's hand trembled against the mahogany door. She had rehearsed this moment 17 times during the sleepless night. Every rehearsal ended differently. Every outcome terrified her equally. She knocked twice. Enter. Atlas Kane sat exactly where she had left him 24 hours ago. Same position. Same tablet. Same impenetrable expression carved into angular features. The morning light caught silver threads in his dark hair she hadn't noticed before. "Have you decided?" Lila's throat constricted. She thought of Mia's labored breathing, the doctor's countdown echoing in her skull. 10 days. 9 now. 8 tomorrow. Her daughter's fragile heartbeat racing against time itself. "Yes," she whispered. The word hung between them like smoke. Atlas nodded once. No smile. No relief. Just acknowledgement of a transaction completed. Yet something flickered behind those gray eyes, something that disappeared before Lila could identify it. "Good. Your daughter will be transferred to my private clinic within the hour. A driver is waiting downstairs." He stood, buttoning his jacket with mechanical precision. "You will move into the East Wing immediately. You are no longer employed as household staff." Lila blinked. "Sir, this arrangement requires proper medical supervision, nutrition monitoring, stress reduction." He paused at the window, back turned toward her. "You cannot carry my air while scrubbing floors." The clinical detachment in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it provided strange comfort. This was business. Emotion complicated business. Emotion destroyed people. Lila knew that truth intimately. 2 hours later, she stood inside a bedroom larger than her childhood apartment. Cream silk curtains framed windows overlooking rose gardens. A king-sized bed dominated the space, its headboard carved from walnuts so dark it appeared black. Fresh orchids perfumed the air. A private bathroom featured marble countertops and a soaking tub she could practically swim inside. Her worn suitcase looked obscene against such luxury. Lila sat on the bed's edge, running her fingers across Egyptian cotton sheets. 48 hours ago, she slept beside a laundry chute. Now servants delivered breakfast trays to her door. The whiplash made her dizzy. She unpacked slowly. 3 uniforms she would never wear again. Photographs of Mia at various ages. A worn recipe book from her grandmother. The bakery dream pressed between yellowed pages. These fragments of her former life looked pitiful arranged on antique furniture. A knock interrupted her thoughts. "Ma'am." A young maid named Teresa stood in the doorway, eyes avoiding direct contact. "Mr. Kane requests you join him for lunch." "Ma'am." The title felt like wearing someone else's skin. Whispers followed Lila through corridors she had once cleaned. Staff members who previously ignored her now watched with suspicious curiosity. She caught fragments of hushed conversations. Overnight promotion. What did she do? Must be sleeping with him. The assumptions burned, but Lila kept walking. Let them speculate. Their opinions couldn't save Mia. Only Atlas Kane's money could accomplish that miracle. Lunch was served in a dining room designed for 30 guests. Atlas sat alone at the table's head, reading documents while eating. He gestured toward the seat beside him without looking up. The clinic confirmed Mia's transfer. Surgery is scheduled for next week. Lila's chest tightened with relief so intense it bordered on pain. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." He finally met her eyes. "We have considerable paperwork to complete first." The contract arrived that afternoon. 47 pages of legal terminology that made Lila's head spin. Non-disclosure agreements. Medical consent forms. Financial arrangements detailed with surgical precision. Custody stipulations that gave Atlas full parental rights upon the child's birth. Lila signed everything. What choice existed? Her daughter's life hung in the balance. Dignity was a luxury she had surrendered years ago. Medical examinations began immediately. Blood tests. Genetic screenings. Psychological evaluations conducted by doctors who treated her like a specimen rather than a human being. They poked and prodded and analyzed while discussing her body in third person. Optimal fertility window approaching. Hormone levels acceptable. Subject demonstrates adequate physical health for pregnancy. Subject. Lila gripped the examination table, knuckles whitening. She had become a vessel, a means to an end. Nothing more. That evening, she wandered the East Wing's empty hallways, unable to sleep. Moonlight spilled through windows onto marble floors she had once polished on hands and knees. The mansion felt different from the side. Less like a museum, more like a gilded prison. A sound stopped her outside Atlas's private study. Ragged breathing. Glass shattering. Lila hesitated. Servants didn't enter that room without explicit permission. But she wasn't a servant anymore. She existed in undefined territory between employee and something else entirely. She pushed the door open. Atlas Kane sat on the floor surrounded by broken crystal. His hands gripped his skull. His chest heaved with shallow, desperate breaths. The Ice Emperor of Silicon Valley was having a panic attack. "Mr. Kane." He jerked upward, eyes wild and unfocused. 4-3 heartbeats. He didn't recognize her. Then his expression shuddered, closed like a vault ceiling. Get out. Lila should have obeyed. Instead, she knelt beside him, carefully avoiding glass shards. Breathe slower. Count to 4. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. I said. I heard you. Her voice remained steady despite her hammering pulse. But I'm not leaving you alone like this. Something cracked behind his eyes. Not anger. Something older. Deeper. More wounded than she had imagined possible from a man worth $11 billion. They sat in silence for 17 minutes while his breathing normalized. Neither spoke. Neither acknowledged what had transpired. When Atlas finally stood, brushing glass from his tailored pants, his mask had returned completely. The procedure begins tomorrow, he said flatly. Dr. Patel will explain everything. He walked away without thanks or explanation. Later that night, Lila dreamed of cinnamon rolls and hospital monitors beeping in harmony. She never noticed Atlas standing in her doorway, watching her sleep through a crack in the door. His expression caught somewhere between calculation and something dangerously close to longing. The doctor's words echoed through the sterile examination room like a verdict. Congratulations. You're pregnant. Lila stared at the ultrasound screen, watching a tiny flutter that would become a heartbeat. 6 weeks. A cluster of cells no larger than a lentil had just altered the trajectory of her entire existence. She had expected relief. Instead, numbness spread through her limbs like anesthesia. Atlas stood near the window, arms crossed, face unreadable. When Dr. Patel delivered the confirmation, something shifted in his posture. His shoulders tightened almost imperceptibly. His jaw clenched for 3 seconds before relaxing. You're certain? His voice remained controlled, but Lila detected an unfamiliar tremor beneath the surface. Absolutely certain, Mr. Kane. Hormone levels confirm healthy implantation. We'll schedule regular monitoring appointments throughout the pregnancy. Atlas nodded once, then left without another word. Lila touched her abdomen gently. A child grew inside her. Not from love. Not from desire. From desperation and a billionaire's clinical need for legacy. Yet somehow, impossibly, she already felt protective of this microscopic life she had agreed to surrender. The following weeks brought unexpected changes. Fresh fruit appeared on Lila's breakfast tray daily, specifically mangoes, which she had mentioned enjoying once during a medical questionnaire. Her room temperature adjusted automatically to her preferred warmth. Prenatal vitamins arrived in elegant glass containers rather than pharmacy bottles. Small acts of care. Anonymous but unmistakable. Atlas never acknowledged these gestures. During their infrequent encounters, he maintained professional distance. Yet Lila noticed him checking on her through subtle means. A housekeeper casually asking about her appetite. A doctor appearing whenever she mentioned minor discomfort. Security personnel ensuring her walking paths remained clear and safe. The ice emperor was melting around invisible edges. One midnight, unable to sleep, Lila wandered toward the library. She discovered Atlas sitting alone in the dining room, eating cold pasta while reviewing documents. 47 chairs surrounded him. All empty. The loneliest man in Texas. Drowning in wealth and silence. She watched him pace hallways at 3 a.m, footsteps echoing through marble corridors like a ghost haunting his own mansion. Some nights, muffled sounds escaped his bedroom. Nightmares that made him cry out names Lila didn't recognize. The arrangement was supposed to remain cold. Practical. Transactional. It was becoming something else entirely. Mia's recovery provided the only uncomplicated joy in Lila's complicated new life. The private clinic had transformed her daughter's prognosis from terminal to hopeful. Color returned to Mia's cheeks. Energy sparked in her crystal blue eyes. She laughed again, real laughter that didn't dissolve into coughing fits. Mommy, look. Mia held up a drawing during Lila's afternoon visit. I made a picture of our new house. Lila studied the crayon artwork. A massive building with countless windows. A tiny figure with brown hair stood beside a tall dark figure she didn't recognize. "Who's this?" Lila pointed to the mysterious shape. "The man who helped us." Mia smiled innocently. "The nurses said a very important man is paying for everything." "Is he nice, Mommy?" Lila's throat tightened. "He's complicated, baby." "Complicated means nice but scared," Mia declared with 6-year-old wisdom. "Like how you were scared before Daddy left but still nice to everyone." Children saw truths adults spent lifetimes avoiding. Meanwhile, storm clouds gathered in Atlas's corporate kingdom. Board meetings that once commanded his complete attention now competed with thoughts of Lila's welfare. He missed 3 consecutive strategy sessions. His responses during conference calls became distracted, unfocused. Executives exchanged concerned glances across polished tables. Victor Hale, vice chair of Kane Technologies, noticed everything. "Atlas seems preoccupied lately," Victor mentioned casually during a shareholders' dinner. "Perhaps the pressure is finally affecting him." Victor had coveted Atlas's position for 7 years. Patient, calculating, waiting for weakness to exploit. Now his predator instincts detected blood in the water. Private investigators began monitoring the Kane estate. Atlas remained oblivious, consumed by internal warfare he couldn't name. One evening, Lila found him in the garden, staring at a marble bench beneath a willow tree. His expression held such profound grief that she nearly retreated. Instead, she sat beside him without invitation. "My wife used to read here," Atlas said quietly, surprising them both. "Eleanor. She loved this spot." Lila waited, understanding that silence sometimes invited more than questions. "We tried for children. 5 pregnancies. 5 miscarriages." His voice cracked almost imperceptibly. "The media called her barren. Defective. They published articles speculating about our fertility struggles like entertainment." Lila's heart ached for the woman she had never met. Eleanor couldn't handle the scrutiny, the constant judgment, the whispers. Atlas's hands clenched against his thighs. "She took her own life 3 years ago. And I couldn't protect her." Tears Lila didn't expect slid down her cheeks. "I swore I would never love anyone again," Atlas continued. "Attachment creates vulnerability. Vulnerability invites destruction. This arrangement was supposed to be different. Clean. Emotionless." He finally looked at her, gray eyes swimming with unshed tears. "But you're making that impossible." Lila reached for his hand without thinking. He flinched but didn't pull away. They sat beneath Eleanor's willow tree until stars emerged. 2 broken people finding unexpected shelter in each other's wounds. Neither noticed the telephoto lens capturing their silhouette from beyond the garden wall. The photograph surfaced online 72 hours later. Grainy but unmistakable. A woman entering the East Wing, restricted territory where no staff should access. Comments exploded across social media. Kane's secret mistress. Billionaire hiding pregnant lover? Inside source confirms suspicious activity. Victor Hale smiled when his assistant delivered the morning report. "Schedule an emergency board meeting," he instructed calmly. "It seems our CEO has been keeping secrets." The trap was set, and Atlas Kane didn't even know he was prey. The headline detonated across every major news outlet simultaneously. "Billionaire Atlas Kane hiding secret woman in mansion. Sources confirm suspicious activity." Lila stared at her phone, watching the story multiply like wildfire consuming dry forest. Comments accumulated by thousands. Speculation ranged from scandalous affair to corporate conspiracy. Her grainy silhouette entering the East Wing had become the most analyzed photograph in America overnight. Atlas found her in the library, hands trembling, face pale as winter snow. "I need to leave," Lila whispered, "before this destroys everything you've built." "You're not going anywhere." His voice carried authority she had never heard before. Not cold. Not clinical. Something fiercer. More protective. Almost desperate. Mr. Kane. Atlas. He crossed the room in 4 strides, stopping inches from her. My name is Atlas. And you will not sacrifice yourself because vultures smell blood. The board meeting convened within hours. Victor Hale sat at the conference table's head, barely concealing his satisfaction. 11 directors surrounded him, faces grave with practiced concern. Atlas entered last, expression carved from granite. This emergency session addresses concerning reports regarding Mr. Kane's personal conduct, Victor announced smoothly. Specifically, an unidentified woman residing in restricted areas of his private estate. Her name is Lila Moreno. Silence crashed through the boardroom. Atlas remained standing, refusing the chair reserved for him. She is carrying my child. The pregnancy was planned. The arrangement is legal. And her presence in my home is none of this board's concern. Victor's smile tightened. With respect, Atlas, your personal scandals become corporate concerns when stock prices fluctuate. Shareholders demand stability. This mystery woman is under my protection. Atlas's voice dropped dangerously low. Anyone who threatens her threatens me. And I promise you, Victor, that is a war you cannot win. The room held its breath. Atlas turned toward the assembled directors, meeting each gaze individually. I have dedicated 15 years to building Kane Technologies into a global empire. I have sacrificed relationships, health, and happiness for quarterly profits and market dominance. I will not sacrifice the mother of my child for your comfort. He walked toward the door, pausing at the threshold. Remove me if you dare. But remember, I own controlling shares. This company exists because I created it, and I will burn it to ashes before I let you harm what matters most. The door closed behind him with thunderous finality. Back at the mansion, Lila paced the East Wing's corridors, anxiety coiling through her chest. Security personnel had doubled overnight. Staff members whispered nervously in hallways. The entire estate felt like a fortress preparing for siege. Atlas found her near midnight, still pacing. You shouldn't have done that, Lila said without turning. Your empire, your legacy, everything you've worked for, means nothing. She spun toward him, eyes blazing. Don't say that. Don't pretend I'm worth destroying your life over. We had an arrangement. A transaction. You don't owe me. This stopped being a transaction weeks ago. Atlas stepped closer, voice raw with emotion he had suppressed for years. You think I haven't noticed? The way you comfort me during panic attacks. The way you sit beside me without demanding explanations. The way you look at me like I'm human instead of a machine. Lila's breath caught. You and the children are the only things that matter now. His hands reached for her face, trembling slightly. I spent 3 years convincing myself I could never love again. That attachment meant destruction. That caring meant weakness. Tears spilled down Lila's cheeks. But you changed that. Atlas pressed his forehead against hers. You changed everything. The following morning brought miraculous news from the clinic. Mia's heart has stabilized completely, Dr. Patel announced, smile breaking across his professional demeanor. The surgery exceeded our expectations. With continued monitoring, she should live a completely normal life. Lila collapsed into the nearest chair, sobs of relief shaking her entire body. 3 years of terror. Countless sleepless nights. Endless prayers whispered into hospital darkness. Finally answered. Mia was going to survive. Atlas stood beside her, hand resting on her shoulder, absorbing her joy like sunlight after eternal winter. He had given money. But watching Lila's gratitude, he realized he had received something far more valuable in return. Hope. That evening, the Kane mansion transformed. Security remained vigilant, but tension dissolved into cautious optimism. Staff members stopped whispering. Lila stopped hiding. For the first time since arriving, she walked through hallways like she belonged rather than trespassed. Atlas joined her for dinner, not in the 47-seat dining room, but in the kitchen, eating pasta from mismatched bowls while discussing favorite childhood memories. He laughed twice. Actual laughter. The sound startled them both. "I never intended for this," Atlas admitted quietly, twirling spaghetti absently. "Any of this. You were supposed to be a solution, a means to an end. Instead, Lila prompted gently. Instead you became the end itself." Later they visited Mia together. The little girl had regained enough strength to sit upright, coloring pictures with fierce concentration. When Atlas entered behind Lila, Mia's face illuminated with recognition. "You're the complicated man," she declared happily. "Mommy said you're nice but scared." Atlas knelt beside her bed, something cracking open behind his careful composure. "Your mother is very wise. Are you still scared?" He glanced at Lila, standing in the doorway with hands pressed against her growing belly. The woman who had transformed his cold existence into something warm. Something worth protecting. Something terrifyingly close to family. "Less than before," he answered honestly. Mia returned to coloring, satisfied with his response. That night, Lila sat in her East Wing bedroom, touching her abdomen where new life grew stronger daily. 2 children now. Mia recovering. Another arriving. A future she had never dared imagine materializing from impossible circumstances. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Atlas stood in the doorway, expression unusually vulnerable, uncertain, almost nervous. "There's something I need to tell you," he said quietly. Lila waited, heart suspended between beats. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. And everything changed again. Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure you subscribe because part 2 is coming next. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens. Drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, and stay tuned. The next chapter is even more shocking.